The biggest piece of LSU's 2025 puzzle is returning. Garrett Nussmeier back for a fifth season. We're reacting to it. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. Garrett Nussmeier teased an announcement on Wednesday when on his Instagram story, he posted a photo of a chair in front of a camera with a purple backdrop, essentially alluding to the fact that an announcement video was coming, and we all knew what that was. And we could read the tea leaves, right? When Will Campbell and Mason Taylor made their announcement that they were going pro, they did so with a graphic on social media. Remember back at the end of the gymnastics season when Haley Bryant and Olivia Dunn and a lot of the key gymnasts announced they were returning to LSU, they did it in recorded videos where they sort of read letters announcing they were coming back. Well, Garrett Nussmeier on social media Wednesday afternoon did in fact announce he will return to LSU for a fifth season. So how did it happen? How did we get here? What left does LSU have to do? We're reacting to that. So thank you for being here with us. First and foremost, this is a Garrett Nussmeier slander-free zone. Anyone who has anything negative to say about Garrett Nussmeier, I am not interested in hearing it. None whatsoever. All you hear from fans in this day and age of college football is all these players are mercenaries. Nobody ever is loyal. No one stays. It's all about the money. Now, let me be clear, and I'm going to get to this in a second. Garrett Nussmeier got broke off, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But Garrett Nussmeier stayed. He waited his turn. Time and again waited his turn. He certainly could have left after a really rough 2021. In 2022, when Jaden Daniels came in, he could have left, stayed. When Daniels came back in 23, he could have left, he stayed. Finally got his opportunity to start. Now he's on some draft boards, potential first-round draft pick, and is coming back for a fifth season in college. And in his announcement video, Garrett Nussmeier talked about how much he loves LSU and wants to bring a championship to LSU. Yes, there is absolutely a financial component. I am not naive. There's a free market. Garrett Nussmeier has an agent. He could have commanded an enormous dollar amount on the open market in the portal. He got an enormous amount to stay at LSU. Could have gone to the NFL, but said his dream is to play in the NFL, and it'll wait on God's perfect timing. And Garrett Nussmeier is returning to LSU. If you wanted someone who wants to be a Tiger, you have someone that wants to be a Tiger. You want someone who wants to win at LSU, you have someone who wants to win at LSU. And oh, by the way, he's also a great, not a good, a great player. Garrett Nussmeier has polished off one of the singular great statistical passing seasons in LSU history. His 3,739 passing yards right now is behind only Joe Burrow from 2019 and Jaden Daniels from just a season ago. And by the way, Daniels at 38-12. Garrett Nussmeier is less than 100 yards away from passing Jaden Daniels. So in the bowl game, Jaden Daniels will become the second leading single-season passer in LSU football history. That's on a team that had no running game. LSU was dead last in the SEC in rushing offense, 107th in the country in rushing offense. You had to throw it. Everybody knew you were going to throw it. And Garrett Nussmeier set back, slung it around, threw for 26 touchdowns and 3,700 yards. Yes, the 11 interceptions are too many. Yes, the decision-making against Texas A&M cost you late in that game. Yes, the turnovers against Florida were a problem. We all know that. But let me remind you, in 2012, Zach Mettenberger was not good. In 2013, he became the second 3,000-yard passer in LSU history. In 2018, Joe Burrow went the entire month of October without throwing a touchdown pass. In 2019, he had the greatest season for a passer in the history of college football. In 2022, many of y'all, you know who you are, many of y'all complained about Jaden Daniels. All he does is first read, then he takes off and runs. He holds the ball too long. He takes too many sacks. He just throws it away. What you would give to have a quarterback that would make a good decision and throw the ball away, to not take sacks, to be smart with the football, to keep turnovers down. And oh, by the way, in 2022, your offensive line was a sieve for much of that year. Daniels' running ability saved your offense. It's why you won 10 games. But nonetheless, he came back, and what happened in 2023? An historic season for Jaden Daniels, where he won the Heisman Trophy. And but for an atrocious defense, you would have been in the playoff, possibly winning another national title. So it is plausible to look at Garrett Nussmeier as taking that leap from year 4 to year 5, his first year as a starter to his second year as a starter. I'm not telling you he's going to win the Heisman, be Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels. But what I am telling you is it is completely plausible to expect him to take that type of leap. The other thing is not just the growth from year to year like the guys I just mentioned, but stability at the position. Garrett Nussmeier has been at LSU now going into his 5th year. He's been here for every day of the Brian Kelly era. He went through an entire offseason with Joe Sloan as his offensive coordinator, as his play caller, game planning with these receivers, with these offensive linemen. And yes, you're losing 3 of your top 4 pass catchers. Yes, you're losing very likely 4 starters on your offensive line. So yes, there's going to be turnover, but having stability at the most important position in organized team sports is massive. If Garrett Nussmeier had elected to leave, LSU would be going into the portal and having a bidding war for some of the top prospects in the portal. That's what you would be left with. You're not going into next season relying on A.J. Swan or Colin Hurley. You'd be going into the portal with your bags of cash, trying to bid on this year's Dylan Gabriel, trying to bid on this year's Riley Leonard or Cam Ward or whoever you identify as the top portal quarterbacks, and having to pay a king's ransom for them. Instead, you get the guy that's already been here, that wants to be here, that wants to win here, that knows your offense, knows your culture, knows your personnel, that has the respect of everyone on the team. This is a win in every possible way. It is the single biggest question that you had to answer. Was quarterback. Was Garrett Nussmeier going to come back? Nothing, literally nothing could have been answered until you had that answer first. Because everything you did financially subsequent was going to determine whether it was going to depend on if Garrett Nussmeier came back. Because if Nuss didn't, how much would you have had to allocate in your NIL funds or in the collective, in the rev share for a portal quarterback? Well, now you know. Would that quarterback have, what style would that quarterback have been? Would you have to fit your offense or go attack positions in the portal to complement that quarterback? Now you know. You already know. And I would submit to you that assuming Jalen Milroe goes pro, Jackson Dart's out of eligibility, Quinn Ewers is likely going pro, look up and down the SEC. We'll see what Carson Beck does. Entering the 2025 season, LSU has the best quarterback in the conference. I don't even know that it's particularly close. You could make a case for Arch Manning and his ceiling. I think Lenora Sellers is a really good runner, but still has to prove he can consistently throw the football downfield and stretch a defense. He's not proven he can do that. He's a dynamic athlete, great runner. Got to turn into a thrower as well. We'll see. But you have the best quarterback in the league. Going into every season, I always make my prediction based on 2 things. Fewest questions against the most manageable schedule. Well, the biggest question that LSU or any team could have is quarterback. And LSU's is answered, and it's answered resoundingly. So, what does it mean for NIL? What type of money did it take to get Garrett Nussmeier back? And what do the Tigers do now in the portal? We'll talk about it when we return. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, get ready to make every moment more with FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, what did it take to get Garrett Nussmeier back? I've been pretty transparent with NIL numbers and dollars and information when I have it. And one thing that I know is that Garrett Nussmeier's NIL deal from the collective, not counting everything he did in true NIL, Raising Cane's and other deals that he done. He's on a Powerade commercial. I'm talking about from the collective. Garrett Nussmeier was one of the bottom 3 quarterbacks by estimates, I believe, in the SEC in 2024. Bottom 3. That will not be the case in 2025. Garrett Nussmeier's NIL deal went north of 7 figures to return to LSU. I will comfortably say that. And while I'm not comfortable telling you an exact dollar amount, I do believe that what LSU is paying Garrett Nussmeier in 2025, the collective now, exceeds what they were offering Bryce Underwood, which was $1.5 million a year. So, I know there's this idea, and it's kind of a double-edged sword when you talk about NIL dollars. In the early days of NIL, a lot of people associated with LSU were very upset with me because I was very transparent in telling you that LSU is very behind in fundraising. A lot of LSU fans didn't like me saying that either, but it was true. The Go Collective, the original NIL organization associated with LSU, did a very poor job. They were not well organized. They were not well funded. And LSU was not a well-funded collective or NIL entity at that point. And it showed very much so. And there were a lot of people at LSU that did like me saying that because publicly it sent maybe the wrong message. Well, now, despite the fact that LSU has missed out on some high-profile targets, Bryce Underwood, Jakeem Stewart, we talked about Cade Phillips. I've put out the numbers. I told you. I mean, Jakeem Stewart got $2 million from USC. LSU's NIL deal went north of $1 million a year for Jakeem Stewart. They're at 1.5 for Bryce Underwood. The offer for Cade Phillips was $800K. They made very, very, very attractive and impressive NIL offers. Listen, LSU's not the richest school. They're not the richest collective, but they're far from broke, okay? But it's a double-edged sword. Do you want the numbers out there that you're spending? I don't know. But what I do know is with all the transparency and the information that's available out there, nobody's hiding anything from anyone, and especially the agents. The agents know what their clients command. And Nussmeier is being represented by Excel Sports Management. Go to the Excel Sports Management homepage, and you will see Tiger Woods. You will see Jared Goff. You will see Nikola Jokic. You will see Caitlin Clark. You will see some of the highest profile athletes in major sports that are represented by Excel Sports Management. And that's who's representing Garrett Nussmeier. They know his worth. They know what he could have commanded on the open market in the portal. And they know what he might have been able to get in the NFL. So I don't really care what the perception is of what LSU had to pay to retain Garrett Nussmeier. I really don't care because the truth is everyone knows. The student athletes know. Their agents know. Their representatives know. Those that are negotiating these deals know. They know because they're having the conversations. But you had to pay it. But here's what's interesting, and this is the most important part. And I'm going to try to oversimplify this so as not to be confusing. But there's this ongoing conversation about collective and revenue share. And remember, they're very different, okay? Revenue share is the money that the athletic department will share with its student athletes starting this summer. The collectives are privately funded organizations that are doing NIL deals with student athletes on behalf of, without an official affiliation with the university. And there's an unknown right now as to what's going to happen when rev share to collectives when rev share goes into place. Schools, the NCAA, everybody wants collectives to go away. Don't know what's going to happen. And that includes the collectives. There's some ambiguity. They don't know what's going to happen. So let's say, and I'm going to use a hypothetical. Let's say a collective has $2 million liquid, $2 million in funds in an account. And come this summer, July 1, when revenue share is rubber stamped and goes into place, part of that agreement is collectives can no longer operate the manner in which they're doing. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, and there's going to be lawsuits and all. I'm just saying this is a hypothetical that could go into effect. Well, what happens to that $2 million liquid that's in an account? Could be more, could be less. I'm just saying. Well, nobody really knows. So what's happening right now is a lot of collectives are front-loading contracts for these players. You're giving them a ton of money now up front because you don't know what, because you have the liquid cash and you don't know what's going to happen this summer. So because LSU didn't have to dump a ton of money into Bryce Underwood, because LSU didn't have to dump 7 figures into Jakeem Stewart, because LSU didn't pay $800K to Cade Phillips, they are, and I shared this with you after signing day, one person told me, quote, flush with cash. This is evidence of that. You were able to go get this deal done with Garrett Nussmeier and not front load a deal, not have it affect your revenue share. So not have it affect what you're already planning to pay your roster for 2025 in the rev share, which you already, by the way, had transfer players with funds allocated there. So when LSU was planning, when Austin Thomas is planning the roster, they had, with the rev share amount, whatever that number is. Brian Kelly used a number last week, say $13 million. And they have it all allocated. What percentage to quarterbacks, what percentage to receivers, what percentage offensive line, so on and so forth as you break down the pie, and then each player in that position group. Well, in that, they already had baked in portals, elite portal tight end, portal safety, all that stuff. Well, now, all the money you didn't spend that you had allocated for those players, you can dump into this portal class. So you front load a deal for Garrett Nussmeier to lock up your quarterback, and now you look around and go, okay, now we got Nussmeier back. Let's look at our other biggest positions of need. Y'all, LSU, we've shared it with you in the previous episode. They're projected to land Barian Brown, the receiver out of Kentucky. Now, they still got to get him. At the time of recording this, that hasn't been officially done, but they're projected by everybody to get Barian Brown. They're projected to get Jakeem Jackson, the cornerback out of Florida, horribly kept secret. They've got a visit from Will Helt, the defensive end from Purdue. Luke Haas, the tight end from Arkansas. All these guys are, visiting LSU. LSU has playing time available. They've got their quarterback returning. They've got a high ceiling, and they got bags of cash in hand. So yes, LSU is at a very, very healthy spot. So I'll go back 1 week ago. 1 week ago on signing day, sat here on this show, and I told you, while a lot of people melted over Bryce Underwood flipping to Michigan and Cade Phillips flipping to Texas and missing out on Jakeem Stewart, I told you. I said they're going to sign a great class, and they did. You flipped the 5-star lineman on signing day. You landed 5-star number 1 cornerback in the country, 5-star number 1 running back in the country. You got a top 100 linebacker. You loaded up on this class. 4 interior defensive linemen. You loaded up. Top 2 receivers in the state of Louisiana. You loaded up in the class. And I said, hey, you also didn't spend that money, which means now you can allocate it in the portal. So let's see what you do for retention and portal, right? And I said, talk to me in a month. If you're an everydayer, and thank you for being an everydayer, you've heard me say that phrase probably too much now. Talk to me in a month. Well, you've retained your quarterback. The biggest possible piece of the puzzle. You're projected to get arguably the top cornerback, arguably the top receiver in the portal as well. You've got arguably the top defensive end, arguably the top tight end visiting your campus, arguably the top safety visiting your campus. How do you close? You got to close these guys, okay? It's not sufficient just to have them visit. You got to add these guys to your roster. But I'm a big believer in actions speak louder than words. Don't tell me, show me. Brian Kelly said we're going to be aggressive in the portal. Okay. So far, he's proven it. Can you get these guys across the finish line? Can you get Berrien Brown? Can you get Luke Haas or Bauer Sharp at tight end? What do you do on the offensive line to protect Garrett Nussmeier? You got Nussmeier. You got to protect him. You got to get him guys to throw to, and you got to get him a defense to complement him. And you got the money to get it done in the portal, and they're proving that right now. Garrett Nussmeier returns. Man, what a massive day for LSU, for Brian Kelly, for Joe Sloan, for Garrett Nussmeier, for the 2025 Tigers. And as we continue to move through it, we'll have every bit of detail on this portal cycle as LSU starts to build the roster for 2025. All right, that'll do it for us here in this bonus coverage of Locked On LSU. Hey, do me a favor. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.